All right, here's the story of that ore bucket. Now, I used to buy a lot of stuff. I started buying stuff on GSA auctions before the internet was out there. And so, anyways, I just kept up with it. I bought everything from road graders to pickups to computers to tools to, heck, I don't know, all kinds of stuff. And so I was always bidding on stuff. And then one day, probably maybe 20, maybe not quite 20 years ago, maybe 17 years ago, that came up on the Nevada GSA auction site. And so I bid it, got it. In that lot was the big ore bucket, which stood over 6 foot tall. I had to stand on my toes to look into it. Super heavy duty. It was originally a riveted one, and then it was welded some. And then there was two man baskets, stackable. I think there was a two man basket. It was vertical, so one guy on top of the other, and I think the other one was a 3-man basket. So here's the strange things that happened with this whole thing. So first of all, as soon as I bought it, I didn't know it at the time when I bid on it. I agreed to I didn't read the small print, that I agreed to get a background check. And apparently it was an FBI background check. So I had to send in my driver's license, a copy of it, and my social security card. And then at the time, I wasn't married. I took this girlfriend that I had with me. She's kind of weird. But anyways, so we got a background check on her too. I was able to go. They said meet on this day at this time. We went to Mercury, Nevada. We went through the main gates there. We went to a building. We ended up getting a bunch of paperwork done there. They sent us to another building, get a bunch of paperwork done there. And then we're just getting shuffled back and forth with all this paperwork. And I don't know, probably 3 or 4 hours later, we go into this other building. And it was the strangest thing, the feeling that I had when I walked in there. There was a couple other people picking up things there. And I felt like the scene out of Beetlejuice when he got his head shrunk and all the people were waiting in line with their numbers, because there was some weird people in that building. Then we finally get this weird interview, and the guy starts asking me, what are you going to use it for, blah blah blah. And I told him, hey man, I'm into old mining stuff, just collecting it, and that's it. And finally we was able to go, and finally they say, okay, you need to go back outside, and there's going to be a guy there waiting for you. His name's Willie. He's going to take you on in and go through another kind of like a training orientation thing. So we go through the main gate, the security gate. There's 2 gates you got to get through, but this one, before you actually go back into the site to Groom Lake, is a military, and you go through that. You can't have any cameras. They check you for all that. And prior to that, I guess some of the paperwork we filled out, it said one of the oddest questions, or one of the oddest things on there that you had to sign, that if you got bitten by any insect, any reptile, and they would give examples: snakes, animals, insects, or any other creature that is not identified. So I don't know if they meant like if you couldn't identify it, or they couldn't identify it, or what, but that was one part. The other one is if there was a blue light caravan. So we're going to be traveling like 20 miles from this spot. So we're going along 20 miles behind this, following this guy. I've got a pickup and trailer on. And so we're following the guy, and he told us when we went to this orientation, we went in this other building after the military checkpoint. We go into a building, there's a lady in there, like a big warehouse looking thing. And there's actually a town at Mercury, Nevada. They got all kinds of stuff there. It's kind of, I think they even have a store there and mailbox, but you can't really get in there. I don't know how they get the mail delivered there. But anyways, so my weird girlfriend's asking, so where's Area 51? You got aliens here? And there was like, they played around, joked it off, laughed it off, shrug it off. And I was like, you may never know, something like that. So then we go on and we get this blue light special. If we see a blue light caravan, a bunch of vehicles with blue lights, there's towers out there that have blue lights on them, and they'll start coming on like big siren like blue lights, and they'll come on, and you're supposed to get completely off the road, off the paved road that you're going in on. So we're going 20 miles, right? Okay, so we're traveling along, and we're observing. This is cool. And at first, before I even went on this trip, I didn't even know. I didn't really even know where Area 51 was. But my son was into it. He was only, I don't know, maybe 10 years old at the time. Something like that. And he was kind of into that stuff. And I had to even call him. I was like, so what's going on here? I think I'm at a place called Area 51. Is Groom Lake it? And he's like, yeah, that's it, man. He was so excited that I was going in. So anyways, that's where we were. We're going along, and so I have a very heavy construction background. I mean, I've worked on mega projects where I have the biggest cranes in the world, working with them, and mining, huge mining projects I've been involved with my whole construction and mining career. And so anyways, there's this dome out there, and it's like a man-made mountain dome. And what I mean by that, it had like a cover on it. It had like a sliding cover. It looked like mechanically, it looked like it opened up like that, but it was like on a mountain. And there was 2 cranes there that were massive. To this day, I don't think I've ever seen cranes that big. So it was, it was huge. Now I know Kiewit has a big old, I used to work for Kiewit, and I know that they have the biggest crane in the world in Ingleside, Texas, the offshore crane. I'm talking a track crane now. There's massively big track cranes. So anyways, I see that. I look over as I'm going by this, and I'm just probably a quarter of a mile away from the road that we're on, and there's this massively big sign there. It says anybody that goes up this road will be shot. Literally. I'm like, okay, so we're already into a military security area, but if you go up that road, you'd be shot. It's kind of strange to be going, hey, we're going to shoot an American citizen. We're just warning you if you go up that road. So that was kind of strange. So we're going along. We get all the way back to Groom Lake. Surprise to me, there's a lot of people that work back in there, and it's a big, they call it union workers. And there's big buildings back in there. And apparently, I do realize that they made a lot of aircraft back in the day. The stealth bomber, was back in there, things like that. And they flew it out of Groom Lake, whatnot. But then we get going back into I call it the boneyard of the area. And there's all kinds of equipment sitting there, and all mining equipment. And I'm used to the old Wagner mine scoops. So there's the Wagner mine scoops. There's some 1 cubic yard Wagner mine scoops in there. There's some 3 and maybe 5 yard Wagner mine scoops back in there. But the one thing that I seen that was massively big was like a 992 Caterpillar forklift. And the mass on that thing was just unbelievable. It was huge. I don't know if you can buy one. There was other equipment that I've never seen before. And I've been studying construction and mining equipment my whole life. Like I said, I've been around it my whole life. So we get out to this area, and here's the ore bucket and the 2-man trips. I'm getting it loaded up. As we're doing it, my weird girlfriend asked this guy, hey, where's Area 51? As I forgot to tell you, as we're going along through this whole 20-mile stretch, there's like Area 21, Area 18, Area 36, and I might not be quite right on those numbers, but they were all these different random numbers, but they called them areas with numbers behind them. And so you're going along, we get out there, and she's like, so where's Area 51? And we're kind of away from everybody at this point. Like I said, it's like a boneyard out there. And he goes, there's like microphones and cameras everywhere. We're being watched, and they can read lips. And she goes, well, she put her hand on her mouth. So if he wasn't going to show it, where wouldn't it be? And he wouldn't say anything. I mean, he didn't go, it doesn't exist or something or whatever. But then he came back and he says, did you guys see the big cranes back there? He goes, when we're on our way back, don't you dare go back in there because they have orders to shoot and kill. He goes, I don't even have authority to go back there. Now, so that's how that happened. So let's go back. I get the buckets and the man baskets and go home. Okay. So here's what I found out later. So during the Roswell crash, they had to go somewhere with the spacecraft or the wreckage or whatever it was, or the body, whatever body they had or whatever it is. So if you think about when that happened, So a little bit of history on mining here. So remember how the government says, hey, you can't mine gold anymore. We're, taking away the gold standard and all that kind of stuff, and nobody could own gold anymore and all that. And that about 1920s or 1930s? Anyways, so that happens. We go through the Great Depression. Can't have the gold. World War II comes along. Anybody that's a miner is probably out fighting a war in World War II. So all this old mining equipment that sat around at the old mining sites all over the United States just sat there. Nobody done anything with it. So the Roswell happens, what, 47, 48? Am I right about that? 46, 47, 48, somewhere like that. Well, they need to go somewhere with this body or this spacecraft or whatever. And the thing that they need to do, for whatever reason, they need to go underground, because that's the theory, right? So they had to go underground. They had to go sink a shaft. So they're like, how do we sink a shaft? Who do we get? And how do we do it fast? And they're probably going to go out and find some old-time miner and go, how do we do this? How does this need to happen? And they're like, okay, you're going to need an ore bucket, and you need to start sinking a shaft. And let's find the biggest ore bucket you can find. Well, where's the ore buckets laying? They're laying all over Nevada, California, Arizona, Colorado, Utah, wherever. They go find the biggest dang ore bucket they can find. They get an ore bucket. That's why that ore bucket was sitting there. They had it painted up. They was using it. So that's my theory there. A little bit of what I learned too, of what was going on there. The other odd thing about this whole thing is, do you remember the guys that were trapped in the mines down in South America? And they was down in there, was it 15 miners or something like that? And they were down in there and they were trying to figure out how to get them out. And they finally, actually some dude from Colorado, some miner sunk a shaft, and they got a man basket to drop down in there. And did you know that that man basket was designed by NASA, because for some reason nobody could design a man basket? Meanwhile, those mine baskets that I ended up with were sitting in Mercury, Nevada the whole time, and nobody said anything about them. They were dang near the spec of the ones that NASA built. Now, my theory behind that is that they ain't about to say like, hey, we got man baskets out here at Area 51. You want to come get them? Yeah, we did it when we was dropping some UFOs down on the ground. So, yeah, I sold everything, and I wish I wouldn't have, knowing what I know now. And there's the story behind all that, and that's really what happened. So, anyways, there you have it. Have a good day.